Jason paid you back to the exact dollar on a Tuesday. 3 years, almost to the day. Not 3 years and a week, not 3 years and a month. The exact day. You didn't notice it at first. You just felt something was wrong. It wasn't the money. The money was never the strange part. The strange part was what happened the same afternoon he paid you back. Jason stopped texting you. Not slowly, not gradually. Completely and immediately. You want to think that's a coincidence. Some part of you already knows it isn't. To understand what actually happened, you have to go back 11 years. You were 23. Jason was your roommate, your best friend, and broke. Not broke in an abstract way. Broke in the way that shows up at 6 a.m. His car had been repossessed 3 days earlier. He hadn't told you yet. You found out because he missed his shift, and his boss called your landline. That night, Jason told you everything. The repo, the missed rent, all of it. You had $4,000. It was everything you'd saved in 2 years. You didn't think twice. You transferred it that same night. No paperwork, no interest. He cried on the phone, actual tears. He said he'd never forget it. You told him not to worry about it. 3 words that would cost you 11 years. He got a new job within a month. A better one, actually. Things turned around fast. You were proud of him. You never once brought the loan up again. And for the next 11 years, he didn't either. That was the problem. Here's what nobody tells you about lending money to someone you love. The debt doesn't just sit in a spreadsheet. It sits in the room with you. Every dinner, every holiday, every casual hangout for over a decade. Jason never mentioned the loan again, not once. And that felt like grace. You thought that was generosity. You thought he simply forgot the number. But here's the thing about people who owe you. They never actually forget. In 1925, a French anthropologist named Marcel Mauss studied gift-giving in tribal societies. He found something almost every culture on Earth already knew, and we forgot. A gift is never free. It creates an obligation, and obligation creates power. The person who gives holds status. The person who receives holds debt. Mauss called it the spirit of the gift. You'd call it something simpler, leverage. And for 11 years, without ever saying it, you had it over Jason. You never asked for anything. You never once brought the money up. You didn't have to. The debt did the asking for you. Every time Jason needed a favor, you were the first person he called. A ride to the airport at 4 a.m., help moving apartments twice, a reference letter. You never thought of it as payment. You thought of it as friendship. Jason thought of it as interest, and he was quietly, constantly paying it. Somewhere in year 4, you stopped checking in on Jason as often. Not because you cared less, because some part of you assumed he'd always be there. People don't leave the ones who owe them. That's what you believed. You forgot birthdays, you cancelled plans twice in a row without much guilt. Jason never complained. Not once in 11 years did he push back. You called that patience. It wasn't patience. It was a man managing a debt. In 2011, behavioral economist Dan Ariely ran an experiment on favors and gratitude. He found that unpaid favors create far more resentment than unpaid cash ever does. Cash has a number. A number can be closed. A favor never really ends. There's a second effect, one economists call the endowment of guilt. The longer a debt goes unspoken, the heavier it feels to the person carrying it, which means for 11 years, Jason wasn't just repaying $4,000. He was repaying every ride, every move, every time you said, "Don't worry about it." And the exchange rate on a favor is never fixed. It's whatever the debtor fears it is. So Jason overpaid. For over a decade, he overpaid and you let him. Not out of cruelty, out of something worse. Simple, comfortable, unexamined habit. The turning point came on a random Thursday, 11 years and 2 months in. Jason texted you, just 3 words. Got a sec? You almost didn't answer. Old habit, he'd wait. He always waited. But something in the wording felt different, shorter, colder than usual. You called him instead of texting back. He picked up on the first ring. Jason said he had some money coming in, and he wanted to close things out. Close things out, not catch up, not see you soon. Close things out. You laughed it off. Told him there was no rush, like you always did. Jason didn't laugh back. He just said, I know. I want to anyway. 2 days later, the transfer landed. $4,000 exactly, no note. You texted him a thank you. A joke even, the way you always did. He read it. You could see the little check mark. He never replied. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, nothing. Not a single message. You told yourself he was busy. People get busy, that's normal. But 11 years of history doesn't just go quiet for no reason. So you did what you always swore you wouldn't do. You went looking. Jason's page hadn't changed much, except for one thing you hadn't noticed before. A photo from 6 weeks ago. Jason at a cabin with 3 other people. You didn't recognize any of them, and the caption stopped you cold. Grateful for people who never made me feel small for needing help. You read it 3 times. You weren't in the photo, you weren't tagged, and you understood slowly that this wasn't really about you at all. You needed to know if this was a pattern, so you called someone else. Ryan had known Jason even longer than you had, since high school. You asked Ryan a simple question. Had Jason ever borrowed money from him? Ryan went quiet for a second too long. That silence was an answer. Then he told you about 2016. Jason had needed rent money, twice. Ryan covered him both times. No paperwork, no interest, just trust. And Jason stayed close to Ryan for the next 3 years, constantly present. Then Jason paid Ryan back in full, out of nowhere, after a bonus at work. And within 2 months, Ryan said, Jason had basically vanished from his life. Ryan had never told anyone. He said it felt embarrassing to admit. Embarrassing to admit that a debt might have been the only glue holding it together. One name from Ryan led to another. A woman named Mia, Jason's ex. You'd met Mia once, years ago, briefly, at a mutual friend's wedding. You found her online and sent a careful message. She replied within the hour. Mia said she'd loaned Jason $2,800 during a rough patch. He'd paid rent late twice. She covered the gap so he wouldn't get evicted. They stayed together for 2 more years after that. Comfortable years, she said. Then Jason paid her back, unprompted, the same month he got a promotion. 3 weeks after that, he ended the relationship. Said it wasn't working anymore. Mia told you something that made your stomach drop. I always wondered why he stayed. I used to think it was love. Now I think it might have just been the math. 3 people, 3 loans, 3 relationships that ended within weeks of repayment. This wasn't a coincidence anymore. This was a pattern Jason didn't even see in himself. You needed to understand why, not to blame Jason, to actually understand. Psychologists have a name for what Jason might be doing without realizing it. It's called debt-driven attachment. Staying close, not from desire, but from obligation. The mind struggles to tell the difference between owing someone and loving them. Both create the same pull to stay close, the same guilt when you pull away, which means Jason may genuinely not have known which one was keeping him there. And once the debt was gone, there was nothing left to test the difference. This is the part of the story where most people expect a villain. There isn't one. That's what makes it worse. There's just quiet math. 3 days after finding the photo, you finally called Jason directly. He picked up on the 4th ring. His voice was careful, guarded. You didn't ask about the cabin. You didn't ask about the photo. You asked one question instead. Did you only stay because of the money? There was a long silence on the line. Long enough to answer by itself. Then he said something you didn't expect. I stayed because I owed you. But I don't know anymore if I would have stayed without it. You told him about Ryan, about Mia. He went quiet again, longer this time. I didn't think about it like that, he finally said. I never once compared them. And you believed him. That was somehow the saddest part of all. He wasn't a con man. He was just a man who never learned to sit in debt. So he ran from it every time. The only way he knew how, by disappearing. That sentence hurt more than if he'd simply said no, I wouldn't have stayed. Because at least a clean no would have told you something certain. What he gave you instead was worse. 11 years you can never verify. You will never know which parts of your friendship were real and which were rent. That's the actual price of the loan. Not $4,000. Certainty. You will never fully trust the years that came after that transfer. Jason asked if you two could still be friends without the money between you. You told him you needed time, not as a punishment, as the truth. Because you finally understood something that took 11 years to see clearly. A loan between people who love each other is never just about the cash. It's a second relationship, running quietly underneath the first one, unspoken. And when that second relationship finally gets paid off, in full, on time, you don't just lose a debt, you lose the reason he was always still there. 4 months passed. You didn't call Jason, he didn't call you either. Then, in early spring, you ran into him. Not planned. A grocery store of all places. He looked lighter, genuinely, like a man who'd put something down. You said hello, he said hello back. Neither of you moved closer right away. He asked how you'd been. You asked the same. The questions were careful, then he said something simple. I've been in therapy. About the money stuff. He said he was starting to understand what he'd done. To you, to Ryan, to Mia. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just said he was sorry it took this long to see. You told him you appreciated that, and you meant it, even if it wasn't enough yet. You didn't hug. You didn't promise to call. You just said goodbye, and meant that too. Walking to your car, you realized something you hadn't expected to feel. Relief. Not relief that it was fixed. Relief that it was finally, honestly, unfixed. For 11 years, you mistook an unspoken debt for an unbreakable friendship. You didn't lend Jason $4,000. You bought 11 years of certainty. And certainty, once you pay it off, doesn't refund itself back to love.